Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, the season-ending wrap-up edition. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined, as always, by Joe Payne of the Las Vegas Advisor. And I guess by the title of the episode, the season-ending edition, I think we're both pretty shocked that we're here. I know I am. Your one comment that I got in a message yesterday certainly indicated that you were. So let's jump right into it and talk about the series. What do you think, besides let down and disappointed and all those other things?
Lack of determination. Montreal was the hungrier team. I think Vegas listened to all the press clippings, how they had their ticket punched to the Stanley Cup Finals before they even played Montreal. I think they looked past them and winning game one in a relatively easy fashion at T-Mobile kind of was their downfall. I mean, we're going to talk about how the power play was 0 for 15. We can talk about how the forwards only scored 5 of the 13 goals that were scored, and the defense actually scored more. I mean, there's so much to pick apart. I'm not sure where to start.
Well, let's start with the easy one. 2 power play goals, maybe 3, and we have a completely different system. You and I have been harping about that since the beginning. There's absolutely no excuse whatsoever that anybody who's ever watched the game of hockey can give me for why that power play shit the bed with the people that it had. The only answer is one thing: Steve Spott. Agree?
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote in today's article that if he's still running the power play next year, I give up, because, I mean, what do you need to do to not lose your job?
He has to lose his job.
No, okay, so here's the question. Does he lose his job totally, or is he taking just off running the power play?
He has to lose his job.
You think so?
He has to. He was, when he came over with Pete DeBoer, he's the power play specialist. He's the guy who had San Jose's power play as number 2 in the league. He's the this, he's the that. And they sucked. There's just no other way to put it. They sucked on the power play. And you know what? The fact that they didn't do anything to adjust the power play is I don't know the right word of disgust.
It's criminal, and it's a lack of responsibility on the coaching staff.
I mean, how big is your ego that you think that your way absolutely is going to work at some point, and we're not going to change anything?
Well, I think, and again, I wrote about this. I think, it's always, Steve Spott is in charge of power play, but DeBoer's got the last word.
Sure.
And I believe that he was so comfortable that with their 56-game season, and they slayed the Dragon of Minnesota, and they beat the team that no one expected them to beat in Colorado, and that was after losing the first 2 games. I think DeBoer just thought, well, you know what? We can beat anybody if we can beat those 2 teams, even if our power play isn't working. But Montreal has a great penalty kill, but they're not world class. But the Vegas Golden Knights made them look like they were world class. I mean, there were times where they couldn't even get the puck across the blue line. And it was just, and when they did get in, nobody goes to the front of the net, Eddie. Nobody takes. Price is that good. And we spoke about this when we had Chris Chapman on as our guest before the series started. And we said that Price would have to play extraordinary for Montreal to have a chance. And you know what? Price didn't play extraordinary. He was good. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't extraordinary. He didn't have to make that many difficult stops. Yeah, he had a couple here and there, but the point is, they lost three of the games went into overtime. They lost 2 of them. They played 8 one-goal games, and they only won 3 of the 8 one-goal games in the playoffs. You cannot win the Stanley Cup if you cannot score timely goals. You cannot win the Stanley Cup if your power play doesn't produce, and you can't win the Stanley Cup if you don't get somebody in front of the goaltender to take his eyes away. It's a simple fix. And DeBoer and the responsibility and the it weighs on it goes directly to DeBoer. He has to make those changes. You know, he was hired under the pretense that he knows how to push the right buttons come playoff time. He pushes the right buttons personnel wise, but coaching wise, he might have gotten out coached there by Luke Richardson, the interim backup assistant coach from Montreal. He never made an adjustment. He never made an adjustment.
Well, you know, I sent you that picture yesterday. It showed up on NHL Tonight.
Angelo in front of the net.
Yeah, Pietrangelo was in front of the net with St. Louis, and the defenseman who just retired from the Blues, Gustafson, maybe, scores the overtime winning power play goal with Pietrangelo as the screen. Now, listen, you know, we don't get into the minutia about strategy and structure, but the wide umbrella that they continue to play, where their two forwards are with their ass against the sideboards, right? They never jammed the net. They never, and they weren't the Harlem Globetrotters. You know, they didn't make passes. They weren't crisp. They did everything possible wrong on the power play that you could ever imagine. And frankly, it was disgusting and it was embarrassing. And Pete DeBoer is not going to lose his job. Like you said, he pushes the right buttons with personnel, but his number one guy has got to go, in my opinion.
Okay,
There's just
so
no other solution.
So here's my question, Eddie. If whether it's McPhee, Foley, McCrimmon says to DeBoer, Spot's got to go, and DeBoer says, he's my guy. Does DeBoer take a bullet for Spot?
No. Are you kidding me? We don't know how much he's making, but he's got to be making $3 million a year. Maybe more. No, absolutely not. They probably, if I'm Kelly McCrimmon and I'm George McPhee, I take him in a room and say, listen, you know, when you came in here that this team is cup or bust, and you went bust, and here's the reasons why we think you went bust, and it's not acceptable. It's not like they were out talented. It's not like they were out skilled. They were outworked. Singularly, they were outworked repeatedly by a team that wanted it more. And that's a problem. And it's a problem. And we'll stay on the power play thing for just another second. It's just not acceptable. You can't fire the players, right?
No, you can't fire the players.
Can't fire the players.
But you and I both know that when I was 31 teams, actually 32 teams, I take that back. The coaches get recycled here in this league. They're not out of work long, especially if you're a successful coach. And DeBoer is a successful coach. I mean, look what happened to Gallant. Maybe they said you got to get rid of Mike Kelly, and he said, I'm not getting rid of Mike Kelly. And they said to him, well, if you don't get right Mike Kelly, then you and Mike are both gone. And I expect to see Mike Kelly rejoin Gallant in New York with the Rangers. So maybe they say to Gallant, maybe they say to DeBoer, Spot's got to go, and DeBoer says, well, he's my guy. And you know, maybe DeBoer thinks, okay, fine, I'm gonna be loyal to Spot, and if you're gonna fire Spot, you got to fire me too, because he knows that he'll get a job. I mean, there's a couple openings right now in the NHL, and DeBoer will be right to the top of that list if he's no longer with the Golden Knights. And so I don't know. I mean, these guys are pretty loyal to each other, and you can see how coaches kind of bring their assistants with them. I mean, look at even the Islanders. Barry Trotz brought his assistant from Washington over with him, and the guy who decided to stay behind. Now, I'm not sure whether Trotz didn't offer him to come along. He got the job, and now he's out of a job too, and he'll land on his feet somewhere, just like the Philadelphia coach landed in Seattle. They all land back. It's like a washing machine that's got the same 32, 35 coaches in, and they just open the door and pull one out, and here's a new coach. No, you don't see any new blood. So I don't know. I think it might be a problem if the Golden Knights upper management says to DeBoer that Spot's got to go.
Let me just say this. If Pete DeBoer decides that he's going to fall on a sword for Steve Spott, he has fooled us this entire year because he's fucking stupid. This team is right on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup.
Are they, Eddie? Are they?
Yeah, I think they've got another couple of years worth of window before Pacioretty, and they got 2 or 3 more years of Pietrangelo at peak, and things like that. No, they're absolutely a prime contender, but to fall on your sword for a guy that failed you, incredibly failed you, beyond reproach failed you that in a way so blunt and obvious that Stevie Wonder could see it failed you, is I would call it an absolute impossibility. Absolutely impossible.
I'm going to tell you why they're not ready to win this cup next year or following year. They have salary cap issues. They're going to have salary cap issues. They have to, it's imperative to sign Martinez. If you sign Martinez, who goes?
Okay, well then, you know what? Let's not rehash the series anymore. Let's talk about the future, because we can get into coaching and we can get into power play, and this will be a 6-hour long bitch fest. But okay, so let's talk about the lineup. Let me tell you who I think is going. They're not going to sign Janmark, re-sign Janmark. He did well, but not $2.63 million ish. Well, not when you've got the kids coming forward. They're not going to re-sign Tomas Nosek. It's $1 million, but it's still $1 million. They're going to need Martinez to take a bit of a hometown discount, and they'll probably phrase it to $5 million here is like $8 million on a Canadian team and $9 million in New York after you get done paying the tax man. And then I think, and I don't want to say this, I think that they're going to buy out or trade Ryan Reeves, because $1.7 million, as much as he is endeared himself to the community here in Las Vegas and has done everything that they've asked of him, for $1.75 million, they can trade him and get a couple of draft picks, or they can make themselves in a more flexible position. The only thing that I think is the anchor that is hanging around their neck, which is weighing them down, is they still have $12 million in goal for another year. So I agree with you 100%. Martinez is now the priority.
Absolutely.
They have to do everything that they can to figure out a way to get Martinez, probably not on a long deal. He's 32, 33 years old, maybe a 3-year, 3 at 5, something along that line. Maybe he takes $1 million, $1.5 million hometown discount.
He's going to get offered, in my opinion, somebody's going to dangle $6 million in front of him.
Okay. Then he's got to take $1 million. Then he's got to take $1 million a year hometown discount. Well, to wear shorts to the game in the middle of winter.
He did say yesterday, post game, that this was or may have been the best team he's ever played on, and he's won 2 Stanley Cups. So yes, that's saying a lot about what the internal structure of this team looks like. But I don't know if they have enough to get them across the finish line. If you think about it, they really don't have a first line center. Chandler Stephen, who centers the first line, couldn't even almost crack the lineup for Washington. He was playing on the 4th line. William Karlsson, yeah, he had a great first year, scored 43 goals. He's a solid 2-way player, but is he a top number 1 center? No, he's not. And that's the weak, the old weakness on the Vegas Golden Knights used to be the defense. They finally, in my opinion, have that fixed with Pietrangelo, with Martinez, with Shea Theodore, who had a pretty tough playoff all around. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Is he hurt? I mean, question was asked of Stone yesterday, who in 6 games had 7 shots on the goal, no points, and none of his 7 shots were even high danger shots. And I forget who asked him the question. They asked him, Mark, now that it's over, were you playing hurt? And he emphatically said no. So
I think he's lying.
you think he's lying?
And not necessarily about the shot total. He looked slower. My observation, my eyeball of watching the series, he didn't look like he was moving at his right. He was doing the same things where he would slow down the pace of the play and he would let the play move up in front of him and he would make the cross seam pass and he would do all of those things. But he seemed to not be doing it at the same pace.
And the reason I think he may be hurt, he avoided the front of the net like the plague. And that's the front of the net is where you pay the price.
Yeah.
And it looked like he didn't want to go there because something was ailing him and he didn't want to, he I guess in his mind, and he said it, I'm the captain, I take full responsibility. I guess in his mind, he'd rather be out there at maybe 75% capacity as opposed to not being out there at all. I mean, we went 6 games without Pacioretty in the Minnesota series until he came back. We lost Stevenson for 3 games. We lost Janmark. So the team was hurt, but even though, I don't know, I mean, I thought going into the playoffs, I thought this team had, if they can get by Colorado, which was a big hill to climb, and they did, I thought they had the ticket punched to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, I foresaw a Tampa Bay Vegas Golden Knights final. Now, do I think Vegas could have beat Tampa Bay? No. Especially the way they played in this last series against Montreal. I mean, Tampa Bay's power play is off the charts. Okay?
Well, yeah, that's the big difference. That's the big difference. Style, like in boxing, styles make fights. The Tampa series that we're not going to get, would be much more like the Colorado series, where the Montreal series was much more like the Minnesota series. It's no excuse. The Golden Knights have absolutely no excuse for getting outworked. When you and I sat and chatted at the game 5 at the Fortress, they didn't even show up. Not only did they not shit the bed, they weren't even in the building. No. I mean,
it was embarrassing. They lost 2 or 3 games at the Fortress where they're dominant at the Fortress. Well, they used to be anyway.
And like you said in one of your early articles, it's the first time in 4 years that you heard them being booed in our barn. And there were people online who were saying, well, you're not a fan. Well, let me just tell you something, folks. They earned that fucking booing. Joe and I sat there and watched every second of that game, shaking our heads, asking when the real Golden Knights were going to show up. They earned that fucking booing, and they know that they earned that booing because they addressed it in the post game. So let's not get blind-eyed about stuff. They shit the bed in games 5 and 6. They lost a game they should have won. They won a game they should have lost, and they absolutely got their ass handed to them in games 5 and 6.
And this is all hindsight right now, but I think Panda, Robin Lehner, played better than Fleury in this series. I mean, I think Montreal exposed Fleury just like the Washington Capitals did in the Stanley Cup final to Fleury's aggressiveness and overcommitment to the puck, whereby they would draw him either to his left or to his right, overcommitting and then send the puck east to west. And Montreal did that a couple of times on Fleury, where Panda is not as athletic, so you can't really kind of suck him in. I think he played well, even though he lost yesterday. I think he played well. I think he played well in the game that he won too. And now the question is, should DeBoer have gone with Panda more in this series? or was he kind of locked in because he was going with Fleury based upon the accomplishments that Fleury had during the season and how he carried the team basically to where they got to? And I'm a Fleury fan. Don't get me wrong, and I don't like the fact that they got 12 million. They got either 5 million sitting on the bench or 7 million sitting on the bench. It's not a good recipe when you have a salary cap. If you didn't have a salary cap, you can have that and not worry about it. So here's my question to you. Did DeBoer make a mistake by keep on going back to Fleury and not using Panda in this Montreal series?
Well, before I answer that, I don't want to have Panda get on our case on Twitter. Panda is very athletic. He might not be as agile as Marc-Andre Fleury because he plays a little bit deeper in the net and his sheer size allows him to take up more of the net. My thought was when you said that they exposed him as being over aggressive, I wonder if you think that he was more aggressive in the Montreal series than he was during the regular season, because during the regular season, we had spoke about that he was a little bit more restrained and he was a little bit more in the crease area. Do you think that he reverted back to the old Fleury and he lost the mentality?
I think that Fleury he was a little overconfident based upon the season that he had. He was lights out, nominated for the Vezina the first time in his entire career. He had a great season. And I think he might have thought, with Pietrangelo and Martinez in front of him, that he could be a little bit more aggressive, so to speak. He can come out a little further. Like you and I both noted during the season, he seemed to be staying back a little deeper in his net, which is unlike him. But in the playoffs, he seemed to revert back to what he's always known as to challenge the shooter, to come out to the top of the blue paint. And I think Montreal took advantage of that. And they might have looked at tapes from the Washington Stanley Cup final and saw how they could kind of trap Fleury into overcommitting to either to his left or to right, and then send the puck, back to the weak side. So I don't know. I mean, we're speculating here. We're not on Fleury's head. I love Fleury. I think he's a great goaltender. But I think based upon the 2 games that I saw Robin play in the Montreal series, he looked like he was he was able to handle Montreal's better than Fleury did, at least in the 2 games that he played anyway.
Well, let me ask the question that nobody wants to ask, but it's probably relevant. So here goes. You know who's undefeated in sports? Father Time. Do you think maybe that all of the games that he played during the season, all of the work that he got, do you think that maybe he just ran out of gas a little bit?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, he obviously didn't play game 1 in Colorado because he must have told DeBoer his legs were tired. He's mentioned that about 2 or 3 times during this playoffs that his legs were tired. And Fleury's a pretty proud guy and he wants to play all the time. But if he's actually publicly saying my legs are tired, there is something to that needs to be at least looked at. Maybe he was overplayed, and and the whole idea of bringing Leonard in was that you were not going to be able to overplay Fleury, that they were going to share the workload. But Leonard got hurt. Fleury picked up the block, so to speak, and then went on an incredible run that DeBoer's hands were tied when Leonard came back. It's like, how do you take Fleury out of the net after he's played the way he has? And they may have rode the horse a little bit longer than they should have. Maybe the rotation should have happened straight through the playoffs. Do we have a different result? It's possible. What nobody's even addressing is the missed icing call that led to the overtime goal. That should not have been icing. It hit Robin's pad. The icing should have been waved off. Once they blew the whistle, the faceoff was supposed to go back to center ice as opposed to deep in the zone, which it did. Vegas wound up getting a shot off winning the faceoff that caught, I think, Price on the right, high on the right shoulder, and it led to the transition going back the other way that led to the overtime goal. So, I mean, everybody was screaming how bad the officiating is. I mean, how could you not see that puck hit his pad? It went right through the blue paint.
Well, getting into the officiating is an entire can of worms that we can't really get into because we'll be here till tomorrow. But I think to get back to the point, Christ, what do they do? I mean, if Fleury's starting to age out, and the next year they're hoping to go back to a full schedule, right? 82 games. If they keep $12 million in goal next year, they don't severely hamstring. They make it impossible to get a first line center. You agree with that?
And especially if you're trying to find money from Martinez.
Right. So that's an impossibility.
It's not going to happen. Something's got to go. Now, does one of the misfits go? Does Marchessault go? Does Riley Smith go? I don't know.
Well, they're all on pretty long-term deals. They all have at least 2 or 3 years left, all at very cap friendly.
I think Marchessault's $5 million. I think Riley Smith is
right around the same. They're all in the 4 or 5.
And 4 or 5, and I think Carlson's a little bit over 5. But I think if you have to get rid of one of the misfits, or you only can keep one of the misfits, you absolutely keep Carlson.
Keep one? You think they could get rid of 2?
No, but I'm just saying, Carlson, I don't think is movable. Not that he's not movable. I think he's valuable enough that you don't want to move him. I think you can get away with moving either Marchessault or Riley Smith to make room.
Okay, but what about the opposite thought about that? Who gives you the biggest return? Carlson. Who gives you the most coming back the other way?
Turn back the other way?
Yes, they're coming back the other way. Who's the most valuable on the trade market, I guess is what I'm asking. Carlson.
Yeah, probably. I mean.
So do you hold on to your most valuable, or do you move your most valuable to get the most back?
No. If you want to keep to Foley's timeline, which is a cup in 6 years, and you've already gone through 4 and you have 2 more, you can't just blow this up. You got to try to keep as many of the major parts of this team together, because the team has the potential to go deep. Do they have the potential to win? I don't know. I've watched every single Vegas Golden Knight game they've ever played. I don't know if they, are they the bridesmaid all the time? And
I don't think so. But
okay.
So here's my question.
Go ahead.
If Martinez and 1C are your priorities, who are you? Tell me who's not on the roster in October.
I disagree. I think Nosek stays. I think Nosek is valuable, especially at his salary of $1 million. I agree with Chet Reeves. That's a contract that they can do away with, even though the Western Conference is a heavy conference and they probably need somebody. But you have Kolesar, who I think is making $700,000 or $750,000. He is a very good replacement for Reeves, not only enforcement wise, but he's got better offensive skills than Ryan Reeves does. And were they lacking Ryan Reeves yesterday? There was no forecheck whatsoever yesterday, and that's about all Ryan Reeves gives you is a tenacious forecheck, and maybe keeps the other forwards' heads up on a swivel, so to speak. But no, Reeves, I don't know whether they can buy him out, if they have that option, or move him. Who's going to take him at that salary? Who needs a player like Reeves? You know who needs a player like Reeves?
The New York Rangers.
Absolutely.
The New York Rangers.
New York Rangers need a player like Reeves. And he'd be going back to a guy who's played that style. When Gerard Gallant played for the Detroit Red Wings, he wasn't as tough as Reeves.
He was pretty tough.
He was a tough SOB. He doesn't have the size that Reeves has, But so if there's a possibility of moving Reeves, going to New York Rangers is an option because I believe Gallant will tell Drury, if you want protection, if you want to keep your star draft picks that you've had over the last 2 years safe, Reeves is the guy we need to bring in here. So that's a possibility. Now, who do we get back? Probably nobody. We don't want anybody back. We want draft picks
Yes,
because we don't want a body for a body. That doesn't solve our problem. Unless, of course, they're going to give us Chris Kreider, which they're not going to do, or Fox, but we're not going to get that. So we'll just take a draft pick here and there. And the Rangers they don't have high draft picks, but they have decent ones because they finished towards the bottom of the schedule of the season this year. So I think Reeves to New York might be a possibility. I think Nosek stays. Trying to think who else is a restricted free agent. I think Janmark also leaves. I mean, something's got to give, Eddie, for this team to.
okay, but
be-
what's got to give? You need to find me. Well, we Martinez will say it costs an extra $1 million. So if Nosek goes, the extra $1 million can go to Martinez, and that's sort of a wash.
Yeah, but so who do you fill Nosek's spot with?
You move.
You're already shallow at the center position.
Okay, let me answer. If Nosek goes, Waugh goes down to 4C, Peyton Krebs could be potentially 1 or 3C. But what I need you to do is I need you to find me $8 million to go get a 1C. Or in the case of Jack Eichel, find me $10 million.
Jack Eichel's not the answer.
No, he's not the answer. So
If you bring Jack Eichel here between Pacioretty, Stone, Pietrangelo, and Eichel, you know what you have on your hands?
not enough. Buck.
The Edmonton Oilers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, a top-heavy team that can't get out of the first round.
Okay, so I still need you to find me the money. Here, let me make it really easy for you. You have to get rid of a misfit, and you have to get rid of Marc-Andre Fleury. It's the only way that you get that amount of money available to make a move for a 1C. Yes or no?
Yeah, that would be 10 million right there.
It's more than 10 million. It's 12 with Marchessault. It's 12.
No,
Five for Marchessault and 7 with Fleury.
But the problem is, I don't think they're going to get rid of Fleury. I don't think they're going to get rid of him for 2 reasons. One is that he's got a $7 million price tag coming along with him, and he's going to be hard to move, especially at his age. He's got 1 year left on his contract. It would be, I think, in my opinion, it would be a public relations nightmare for the Vegas Golden Knights to move Fleury. At this point, I think they bite the bullet. They keep both goaltenders, and they make a move down the lineup, either with Marchessault, you say Carlson or Smith. They get rid of Reeves, and there's your money right there.
It's not anywhere near enough. Carlson and Reeves is 6.75. It's not enough for a first line center. How about Fleury back to Pittsburgh and retiring as a Penguin?
I don't think that's going to happen.
And I'm curious, my dear friend Joe, when have the Golden Knights ever gave a shit about a public relations nightmare? Come on, man. They pulled the rug out from underneath Gallant, right?
Yeah, but Gallant and Fleury are two different animals.
Yes, agreed.
Fleury is the adopted son of Las Vegas.
Yes.
He's not going anywhere. If they didn't move him, they could have moved him. They could have moved him, especially after the season that he was having, and they chose not to. When they tried to move him, as far as rumors go, between last year's playoffs and the beginning of this season, there were no takers.
Pittsburgh didn't have enough money. Jimmy Rutherford said he wanted him. He just didn't have the money or the means to make the deal. That's why part of the reason that Jimmy Rutherford quit Pittsburgh. He couldn't get that deal done. So here's the wrench in the armor. Think about 4 years ago, how in flux things were when the Golden Knights were getting ready to draft their initial team. Think about when George McPhee put on his mask and loaded up his gun and started robbing GMs around the league. We both think that's not going to happen this year because they, in theory, smartened up. But here's what we do know. Teams can only protect one goaltender. So there's going to be a lot of very decent to good goalies that are going to be unprotected on the market and be UFAs or RFAs. So I don't think I subscribe to Fleury as an automatic lock. When the Kraken get to shuffling things around, I mean, there are a lot of teams with two good goalies that can only protect one, and the Kraken can only pick three goalies in the expansion draft. So this is a very unique and complicated situation, especially with 12 million in the net. And we know absolutely 100% that the flat cap is going to be at 81.5 next year. They expect that it'll certainly go up the year after the new TV deals hit, things like that. But next year, I think they're almost forced to move Fleury if they're going to make a serious play at a real 1C or a real free agent.
When you say next year, you're talking about next month.
Yeah, next business year for the NHL, which opens with the draft and the expansion draft end of July.
Right. The only thing, I mean, the draft coming up is going to be interesting because, as you said, Vegas is exempt. So there might be teams willing to make deals with Vegas.
Exactly.
Right. To take on Fleury and then expose him as their goaltender.
Now I got you thinking what I'm thinking.
No, I understand that, but my point is that I don't know if Foley is going to let that happen. I don't know if Foley is going to give, and you know Foley has, I don't know if he has the last say, but he has an important say on who's with the team and who's not with the team. I don't think Foley is going to let Fleury leave Las Vegas. That's my opinion.
Let me get this on the record. I don't like the idea of them trading Fleury for every reason that we've discussed the entire year. But as you so eloquently pointed out a number of times over the course of this year, it's a business. And I think that this expansion draft gives George McPhee a lot of extra cards in the deck that he didn't have if it wasn't for the expansion draft. A lot of teams right now are going to look to George McPhee being exempt from the draft as a buffer or a potential protection for them losing a player they really don't want to lose. And George, we suspect, will put on the old mask and the gun.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't know if you're aware of this, I'm sure you are, but just for our audience sake, excuse me, there is a clause that if any of the other 30 teams move a player to Vegas who's exempt from the draft, Vegas cannot move that player back.
Correct. Yeah, there's no jump back.
You can't hide him in Vegas.
Right.
You can't send a player to Vegas to protect him from the draft, and then after the draft is over and the Krakens have their team, then Vegas sends back that play. That will not happen. So if McPhee does able to grab a player, it's a player that's got to play for the Vegas Golden Knights. He can't come here in a shell game and be protected until the draft is over, and then he gets shipped back for further consideration. So that's not going to happen. But the possibility of McPhee and McCrimmon using the draft to their benefit is very highly likely to happen. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement.
Normally I would say that the off season is going to be quite a while, and that we're not going to have anything to talk about for the next 2 or 3 months. But I got a funny feeling our audience is going to be subjected to you and I at least 3 or 4 times over the shortened off season summertime. There's a lot going on. If Mr. Foley is going to stick to the Cup and 6 thing, he's got to really he's in a really tough spot. You know, the parts that they've got rid of in the past, with the exception probably of Stastny and maybe Schmidt to some extent, you could justify. If they're going to make the move, the big move, either a free agent or a trade or something like that, they're going to have to get rid of something of great significance to them financially, and spiritually is probably not the right word, but chemistry wise, team wise, city wise, they're going to have to get rid of an enormous asset to move forward to fill the spot that you say is probably the reason or the thing that will put them over the top and keep them from going over the top if they don't make the move, that being 1C.
Yeah, no, they definitely need help down the middle. They don't have a bona fide 1C. They never really had one to begin with.
They have not had one.
No, they've never had one in 4 years. Here's a hypothetical question. I was thinking about this all morning, knowing that we were going to do this podcast today, because I've gotten a lot of feedback from fans on my blog about the draft and the fans and the expectations of this team. Hypothetically, and you and I have been around hockey a long time, would you rather be a Vegas Golden Knight fan now, having all this early success without any disappointment, but not winning the Stanley Cup? Or would you rather have some of the ups and downs that you as a Detroit Red Wing fan and me as a New York Ranger fan have gone through, but we've won the Stanley Cup? Your team won it obviously a couple of times, but which side of the coin would you rather be on? I mean, it's great being a Vegas Golden Knight fan. You've made the playoffs every year. You've made 3 basically conference finals out of 4 years, and the 1 year that you didn't was a big snafu on a 5-minute major. Would you rather be a Vegas Golden Knight fan and have the early success but no Stanley Cup, or go through some tough times for maybe 10 to 15 years and then finally get a Stanley Cup? Which one are you taking?
Well, you know, I get in a lot of trouble when I talk about the fan base, so I'm not going to talk about the fan base.
No, okay, no, but I'm asking you, which would you rather be? Would you rather be a Vegas Golden Knight fan and currently and have the astonishing success that they've had in their first 4 seasons? Or would you rather be, let me think of an example, or would you rather be, maybe Toronto's a bad example. Would you rather be
the Red Wings?
Okay,
Red Wings. They made the playoffs for 26 years in a row. The Red Wings
and won at least 4 cups, I believe, recently.
Won 4 cups, but they also went 18, 20, 42 years without a cup.
Exactly. So
okay, I have the answer.
Okay,
and I'm gonna take it in stages. The Vegas Golden Knights, what they've done has been incredible in sports, but it's been more incredible for the city that I call home.
Okay.
If the Vegas Golden Knights didn't have the success that they have had in the first 4 years, this franchise would be in desperate straits, ticket sale wise, fan base wise, and all of the other aspects of it, because living in Vegas for going on 32 years, the fans are very fickle. When UNLV stopped winning at basketball games, you could get a ticket on Gucci Row at the Thomas and Mack for $50. When they were winning and playing like a pro team, it could be 50 grand. For that, I'm forever thankful for the Golden Knights, but their success came too fast, and the downside will come. I don't know if it's going to come in the next 2 years or 5 years or whatever, but for the new hockey fans out there, I can't tell you how incredibly fortunate that you are to have gone on this ride with this hockey club. As somebody who's been around hockey for over 50 years, the downtimes are deadly, and they're brutal, and they're merciless, and owners have to give away a car to get people to go in the stands. And you, as Vegas fans, have never endured any of that suffering, but you also don't have a Stanley Cup. As much as I admire Mr. Foley's fervor for saying playoffs in 3 and cup in 6 and all of those other statements that are very proud and strong, they're also incredibly unreasonable. And they're very unfair to tell a fan base that's not as hockey savvy as a lot of the fan bases are in the league that that's a possibility. Okay, because it really isn't. They've done incredible things. They've made incredible moves, but they haven't quite got over the hump. And I hope that the fan base stays when times get lean. So my thought is, while this is a wonderful ride and we love it, even though we're heartbroken and disappointed in this year's outcome and last year's outcome, and all 4 years, ultimately, their outcome, because we haven't achieved the ultimate goal. We've done what we could do to get it, but it's really not a reasonable expectation, in my opinion. And I think that as much as I enjoy the ride, seeing a team win the Stanley Cup like you've done, and like I've done, and seeing a team win the World Series like I've done, there really is nothing like it in the world. Going to a parade, there's nothing like it in the world. So this is, God, I don't want to call it fool's gold, because they are a fantastic hockey team, but maybe the success has come a little bit too early. Maybe there hasn't been enough real pain to, I don't want to say justify winning the Stanley Cup, but to experience the incredible joy of winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and you make an excellent point, because I was at the parade for the '94 Rangers. I was at the parade for the '86 Mets, when there's just literally millions of people. It was just overwhelming, and there's nothing like it. And so the early success of the Vegas Golden Knights is what's causing. And if you notice, there's so much venom among the other fan bases towards the Vegas Golden Knight fan base, because they're sour. I had a cousin of mine last night who texted me, and I said to him, he was kind of poking me about, who are you going to watch now that your team got eliminated? And I said, why do you hate the Vegas Golden Knights so much? And he basically said, it just irks me that McPhee was able to put together a winning team so quickly, where other franchises go 10, 20, 30 years without accomplishing what Vegas has accomplished. And you could see it even with the commentators on NBC. It's almost like, this is supposed to be the hardest trophy in all of North American sports to win. Why is Vegas always knocking on the door? It's almost like it bothers them that the Vegas Golden Knights might actually win the Stanley Cup within their first 5 to 6 years. It's going to upset the whole hockey world because of that. And it's the fan bases of the other teams are just, they hate the Vegas. They call us uneducated. And what they fail to realize, that, and you know this better, yes, there are a number of new hockey fans here in Las Vegas, but this town has always been a melting pot of other North American cities who had hockey teams. They come here, they still loved hockey, and now we got our own team. So it's not, people must think that 80% of the people sitting in T-Mobile don't know when a referee raises his hand, what he's doing, or when the referee signals this, what's that. 90% of the people understand hockey here because they've loved hockey. They came here with hockey passion, like you would, Detroit, like me and the Rangers. So this hatred that the United States has about Vegas and its hockey team is uncalled for. The fans here in this town are very educated, and the new ones have learned very, very quickly. And I can tell that by the questions I'm asked on my blog or the comments that I get. This is, I don't want to call it a hockey town, because that's Detroit, okay? But we're not far behind here in Las Vegas. The fan base here is as educated as far as I'm concerned. They've been excelling. You know, when you really go to school and you get skipped a grade, well, the Vegas Golden Knight fans have skipped a grade because they picked up this game. The new fans have picked up this game pretty easily and pretty well. And the old dinosaurs like you and I, we understand about this game and always have, and that's why we do this blog, this podcast.
It's going to be a very interesting, complicated next 60 to 90 days. And Joe and I will be here because I feel like the Golden Knights are not going to stand pat. And in order to not stand pat, and in order to get better and potentially get over the hump in year 5 or in year 6, they're going to have to do something that's going to really, really rub the fan base wrong. It's going to really irritate and hurt and cause venom and be uncomfortable and likely be a public relations nightmare, and all sorts of bad, I think, are going to be perceived for the good of winning the Stanley Cup. I think that's the only way that they get over the hump at this point. They're at the precipice. They are the bridesmaid, even though they didn't get to the Stanley Cup finals. Their record over 4 years and their statistics and all of those other indicators, they're right there. But to get over the hump, they're going to have to do something really, really awkward and uncomfortable for the fan base. You and I probably won't be affected that much because ultimately we just want to have a parade and we understand more the business and how this game operates, you know, on the business side. But I have this sense that there's going to be an earthquake of a move that's going to be made by the Golden Knights with the hope, and not the hope, with the plan of getting them over the hump and winning the Stanley Cup.
That is always, even the all plans, you have to have hope in your whatever plan you do make. But you're right. I mean, they cannot go into next season with this salary cap gymnastics, you know, dressing only 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, or some games only 5 defensemen and 12 forwards, or 13 forwards. Something has to give. There's going to be 1, possibly 2 players, maybe even 3, currently on the roster who are not going to be here next year. And like you said, this town has not only adopted Fleury, but they adopted the players. You know, they're like family to the city of Las Vegas. And when he leaves, there's going to be rumblings. But so be prepared, because the Vegas Golden Knights, as you know them today, are not going to be the Vegas Golden Knights come October when the next season starts. So.
But hey, folks, the good thing is Joe and I will still be here. Neither one of us are tradable. Nobody will pay anything for us other than a roll of used hockey tape and maybe a broken shin pad. So we're done crying in our beer for the 2021 season. The draft is in a month, basically. The expansion draft follows immediately after that, or in some order. Basically, Golden Knights fans, it's going to be the same thing that happened 4 years ago. The only difference is that the Kraken aren't going to get to steal a player from us. And expect George to do something big.
I think the expansion draft is first, right?
I don't, honestly, I don't remember what order they're in, but they're within a week of each other.
Yeah.
There's a draft, and then the Kraken have 3 days exclusively to negotiate with unrestricted free agents, and then I think they pick.
Okay.
So it all happens around July 24th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, something like that. So we probably won't come to you for a month. We hope you'll miss us. But when the shenanigans start happening, the old guys will fire up the computer machines and turn on the lights and tell you what's going on with our Vegas Golden Knights. I want to thank you for, I think, 19 episodes worth of shenanigans that Joe and I have put you guys through. Thank you all for subscribing and helping support what we're trying to do and the information we're trying to give all of you. And we'll see you a couple of times during the off season, getting ready for rookie camp and training camp in September. Anything final thoughts, Joe?
Go Knights, go.
That's it. That's the only way we're going to end this. So we'll see you around draft day, folks. Have a great time.